don't get mad, but this made me mad.
Their dear leader told them to say that before they ask any questions.
No, I actually mean that. I actually mean that. So my question is, I want to know how you feel about the U.S. government giving Israel over $3 billion in foreign aid per year, which is more than what we give to third world countries such as Ethiopia, even though Israel is able to afford socialist policies for its citizens, such as free health care and subsidized college education. Why isn't Israel expected to cut back social programs to make room in their budget for their military, like the United States has to, instead of relying on welfare from a country that has homeless veterans and citizens who can't afford trips to the doctor? So why aren't we putting Americans and America first?
Again, I'll answer your question seriously, and then I'll go into what's really motivating the question, because that's important for everybody to know also. Oh, you guys don't want to hear that truth, do you? Ah, that gets under your skin, doesn't it? What? Actually, I do, because I see what you crazies post online. You forget that the cat's out of the bag. You're not hiding the ball very well.
Okay.
All right. So why do we give aid to Israel? I think it's an important question. We give just over $3 billion a year to Israel. Why do we do that? Well, they're the one democracy in the Middle East. They're our ally. Also, most of that money has to be spent on American goods, just to be clear. So we benefit pretty greatly from that. We also benefit from the technological exchanges that we have with Israel. For instance, some of the things that have saved my friends' lives. Certain tourniquets, skedcos, that's how we carry our wounded off the battlefield. Those are all Israeli developments. I benefit personally from those things, especially given what I've seen on the battlefield. So there is extreme benefit in doing so. You have to understand something about scale also when you're talking about Israel. They're a country that's about the size of the city I'm from, Houston. Okay, so they have to spend a huge amount of their GDP on defense already. It's not unreasonable to think that they do need extra aid in order to fend off the many, many, many people around the Middle East who want them dead, the least of which is Iran, which has continued to seek nuclear weapons. By the way, Iran just kicked out an IAEA inspector from Iran who was trying to inspect.
I don't get mad, but this made me mad.
Yes, Congressman, conservatism is about order. And within just 5 years of gay marriage being normalized, we have seen a trend of trans kids being chemically castrated, drag queen story hour. This is in Houston. And other occurrences which are all results of individual liberty run rampant. If there was a potential that the Supreme Court could reverse gay marriage, would you back that proposal, sir?
Well, I can't back a proposal as a legislator from the Supreme Court. I don't think that's in the works. Just to be clear, just on the basis in reality, I don't think that's ever going to happen. I think that's been normalized. The question as conservatives that we have to answer is, well, we have to define our principles.
Yes, we do, sir.
And the principles of conservatism are this: is somebody's rights infringing on somebody else's rights? And so that's important. So when you So some of the examples you mentioned, what's happening is there is an infringement on somebody else's rights.
Like kids who are getting their genders reversed.
Right. I'm against, yes, that's problematic. That's one example. What else is problematic? Can you force somebody to participate in a gay wedding? And the answer is no, of course not. You should not be able to, and that's the fight over a cake maker and a photographer. You know, can you force them to participate? And so we have to define our lines very clearly. I don't like the idea of telling gay people what to do either, if it doesn't affect anybody else. That's important.
I understand that, but what does homosexuality have to do with conservatism and the conservative movement? They're so separate and they're so different.
I'm not, well, the conservative movement is about an approach to government. And we approach with certain principles. Yeah, and so, there's a mix of libertarianism in there. I think, so it's an interesting question, I understand it, but I also, again, I'm going to say what I said before, I am not willing to tell the LGBT community how to live their lives as long as they're not telling anybody else how to live their lives.
They are. They're forcing transgenderism on kids. They are doing that.
Which I agree with. But that's a separate. But that's.
I don't get mad, but this made me mad.
Crenshaw. You need to show students they need to ask questions. Please.
I don't get mad, but this made me mad.
And then they use that to cloak their anti-Semitic leanings and their racist leanings. And it's pretty gross. Guys. And I'll say this, now we're going to have a little come to Jesus moment.
I wish you would.
You don't have the luxury of the time that I grew up in, where nothing was online and we weren't tweeting and we weren't on Facebook and things like this weren't being filmed. You guys live in that reality. And you're young and you're not that experienced.
He doesn't
right
like
now.
being on
You're very
camera.
upset and emotional.
He doesn't like being.
Years from now, you're going to regret.
Yeah,
this.
he's pissed.
You're going to regret.
He's fucking
being
pissed.
On camera and saying some of the things.
He's
that you're
fucking
saying.
pissed.
I don't get mad, but this made me mad.
Hey everybody, back in DC, and tonight we voted on the Never Forget Education Act. It's a grant program to teach students about the Holocaust. We're doing it tonight because today was International Holocaust Remembrance Day. It was also the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. It's also really important because our students haven't been learning about the Holocaust correctly. 2/3 of millennials couldn't identify what Auschwitz was. A fifth of millennials didn't even know what the Holocaust was. That's really alarming. And if we're going to prevent these kind of atrocities that we saw in the 20th century, we have to learn about them. Not just about what the Holocaust was, but what caused it. We have to learn how the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party, came to power. We have to learn what identity politics does to a society when one group is blamed for all of the problems of another group. When we're educated, we can prevent these things.
I don't get mad, but this made me mad.
So for the third time in American history, the House of Representatives has voted to impeach the president. It was one of the thinnest, fastest, most evidence-free cases of impeachment in our long history. I voted against it, of course. The Constitution says that the evidence for impeachment must be compelling. It says that it must be based on treason, bribery, or high crimes and misdemeanors. That's not what this impeachment was about. The Democrats brought forth 2 articles of impeachment: obstruction of Congress and abuse of power. So let's lay those out. Let's start with obstruction of Congress. So the Democrats are making the case that President Trump obstructed Congress, not obstructed justice. That would be different. To obstruct justice means you are defying a court order, specifically in this case, a subpoena. The Democrats are making the case that they can compel testimony from their subpoenas, but that's actually not true. Only the courts can do that. They're making the case that the separation of powers are co-equal branches of government. That framework doesn't really exist. Their impeachment case relies on this falsehood and misreading of the Constitution and our founders' intent. The second thing, abuse of power. It's a vague term, but here's what the Democrats mean by that. They want to make the case that in asking about the Biden-Burisma, which is corrupt on its face, situation, President Trump abused his power. And they make the case that his intention was to garner Ukrainian influence in the 2020 elections. There's not a shred of evidence for that, by the way. Not a shred. They're making the case that you can't ask about that kind of thing because former Vice President Biden is now running for president. But you have to ask yourself, why wouldn't it be in the public interest to know about the obviously corrupt conflict of interest that Vice President Biden engaged in? Let's not forget what happened. Vice President Biden wanted to withhold aid to the Ukrainian government unless they fired a prosecutor who was prosecuting or investigating a company that his son, Hunter Biden, was on the board of. Now, I'm not the only one who thinks that. All of the witnesses who came through also agreed there was an obvious conflict of interest there. So to say that our president can't ask about that or look into that is absurd on its face. But that's what this case for impeachment rests on. That's why I voted against it. And it's a sad day in American history. And it's a solemn day.
Democrats will be patting themselves on the back for protecting the Constitution and democracy, but that's not what happened tonight. What happened was a thin case, a shallow case for impeachment. Third time in American history. I'm not happy about it, and that's the truth about what happened tonight's vote.
I don't get mad, but this made me mad. So I'm here at the Tin Roof in Atascocita, Texas, just outside Houston. And this place is struggling. They might have to close down. This is the kind of place that would be saved by the stimulus package that we were hoping to vote on as of yesterday. But Democrats torpedoed it. This is the kind of business that would have access to an SBA loan that would then be forgiven for rent, utilities, and payroll. That bill would have kept employees attached to their businesses. We're in a pandemic right now, which means we have to press pause on the economy. We've got to press pause on the economy. We're asking businesses to close. We're asking them to stop serving customers. If we're going to ask them to do that, we have to give them the capital to survive during the pause in economic activity. We have to make sure they can keep paying employees and their rent. That's what that bill was going to do. For small businesses, those loans would just be forgiven. For big businesses, they would be loans. Democrats don't like big business. Democrats, I don't think, understand basic economics. They don't understand that when your fellow American loses a job, it doesn't matter whether they're from a small business or a large business. Large businesses need capital. There was $500 billion that would be loanable to big business. Democrats hated that. They hated it. Even though within the bill there was parameters in place. No increases for executive pay, no stock buybacks, and keeping people on payroll. All of the protections were in there. And our economy needs it badly. It needs it badly. We're shedding jobs like crazy. Businesses are closing today and tomorrow and the day after that. This is no time for partisan politics, but that's what the Democrats wanted to do. It's the most disgusting thing I've seen. Why are they doing it? What do they want in the bill? What's their counter negotiation? This is going to make you really upset. Here's just a few items. It's things like they want collective bargaining rights for federal workers. That has nothing to do with the coronavirus. And by the way, federal workers are still getting paid, just like most government workers are. Guess what else they wanted? They want carbon emissions caps on the airlines if they're going to. I don't get mad, but this made me mad.